next fusion that is coming to Raid Shadow Legends. And I know there is a lot of discussion, and also a lot of people are not happy with the next fusion in Raid Shadow Legends, but I wanted to talk about this fusion from my perspective as a relatively new player. I've been playing the game for about 9 months, and my objectives and concerns in the game are going to be drastically different than someone that's been playing the game for 5 or 6 years. Now, got a new promo code. If you use the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen, not only will you get the legendary Corrado right from the start, which is a big deal, you also get Ugo when you hit level 15, which is an epic support champion, and then another epic support champion at level 30 to Gore. So you're going to be set up right out of the gate for big success with those 3 champions. Then, even more importantly, in the first 24 hours, use the promo code Monkey King to get my absolute favorite character in the game, Sun Wukong. Now, this is important. You can only use one promo code every 24 hours. There are other promo codes out there that are not good. And if you use one of those promo codes, you won't be able to use this one, because this one right here only works in the first 24 hours. And then you can use those other promo codes later. Does that make sense? You got to do this one within the first 24 hours. Now that we've got through it, I wanted to talk about fusion events. And fusion events so far has been one of my favorite things, frankly, in Raid Shadow Legends, because I was able to do the Lord Fabian fusion. Amazing character, love him. I also did Mad Hatter, amazing fusion. But I'm finding that I don't have enough resources and the commitment and the time and the dedication to do every single one of them. And I have to kind of pick my place. And I'm finding that where I'm at in the game, I can alternate between fusions. So I was actually kind of looking forward to this next fusion because I did get Lord Entertainer Fabian, who's amazing. I skipped Lythansur, Breastbane, Beastbane, and then now we have Ishiyama the Immovable. My understanding is that is Stone Mountain. So we're gonna go over the kit. I think most in-game players are not thrilled about this one for various reasons, but I wanted to go over the kit and see if this is something that I'm going to be personally considering and going for, because I have different concerns as being a newer player, right? So Ishiyama the Immovable overview, wielding his fiery chain flail, the descendant of one of Yakai's greatest warriors, rises to destroy all who threatens his realm. Decades ago, Ishiyama was set ablaze by a monster known as Fyro, the Fire Knight. He was consumed by the flames, and in the aftermath, he entered his ancestors' vault and equipped himself with the strongest armor in Shadowkin history, known to make the wearer immovable by any enemy. And when I think of immovable, I think of like a tank, but this looks like to be a HP based damage dealer. Okay. Ishiyama the Immovable focus on dealing damage while growing stronger against enemies under debuffs, all while placing a few debuffs on his own. His debuffs come from A2 and AoE attack that can place fear, decrease crit damage, and decrease crit rate on enemies, with the effects becoming irresistible if the target has 2 or more debuffs. Since many bosses like the Hydra or in the Doom Tower have a base 15% crit rate, lowering their crit rate helps you protect your team from dangerous hits. The fear also adds crowd control for enemies, or perhaps the Chimera's ram form. Now, I want to talk about the difference between fear and true fear. So both fear and true fear, when like let's say your character has true fear or fear, there's just a 50% chance that nothing happens, right? There is a difference though, and it's a big difference between fear and true fear. On true fear, if you use your A3 ultimate, let's say, and it's that 50% fail, it goes into cooldowns and you lose the ability. But under the normal fear, you could still do your A3 ultimate the turnaround. So true fear is much, much better than fear, because it essentially wipes out the cooldowns. It's like attacking when you have blind with your ultimate and it just misses. then that ability is no longer used, and effectively it's more effective. It's actually better than an ability block, right? Because the ability is now on cooldown. So I think this would be a lot better if it had True Fear, is what I'm trying to say. One of the main reasons these debuffs are important is that they help scale max HP. His passive gains 3% max HP up to 30% for each debuff he places. This means that as the fight progresses, he becomes stronger and tankier, allowing him to sustain it more effectively and deal more damage. So that seems like a ability that'd be good use in a boss fight, not necessarily in the arena. Additionally, if enemy resists one of his debuffs, he can place his debuffs unresisted on the next hit. So that's a part of his passive. So I think the idea here is that you can ignore accuracy, go all out on, let's say, HP and crit damage and maybe speed, but not necessarily. You don't have to do speed, but I guess speed's going everywhere. But you could ignore accuracy because his passive says that the first time, if it misses, the second time it sticks. That's kind of interesting. So I guess then you just won't need any accuracy if you want to operate under those conditions. One of the main reasons the debuffs are important is they help scale max. He passively gains 3% up to 30% for each debuff he places. Okay, we already read that. In terms of his damage potential, the A3 is expected to be the strongest kill, ignoring 25% of the target's defense, or 50% of the target is under 2 or more debuffs. So going into a team with another debuffer seems like it's going to be necessary to get the most use out of that A3. This makes it strong for taking down a single enemy or dealing solid damages to bosses. Upon killing a target with this skill, he also places a block damage on himself, providing his strong self-protection in areas like the arena. With the long-awaited hard mode faction wars arriving, Ishiyama is expected to be a strong option for this content, as well as other faction limited to areas like Curse City or even certain Shadowkin siege teams if his damage meets expectations. Additionally, his A1 can reflect random debuffs back onto enemies, allows him to counterattack with it when attacked by enemies under debuffs. So that is very interesting. I know Shadowkin, I've got Mitch and I just got Lady Mikage. What I really need was a reviver, and what I've been hearing from everybody is that Shadowkins really don't have a reviver at all, so that is kind of like a big disappointment. Let's read the passive first. Whenever an enemy resists a debuff placed by this champion, the next debuff placed by this champion cannot be resisted. Each debuff placed by this champion increases their match HP by 3, stacks up to 30%. All right. It's interesting. I don't know that is going to be important in arena necessarily. I guess if it's a longer fight. But anyways, and then this is interesting because I believe that allows for an opportunity for him to ignore accuracy. And I know when building characters, if you have to focus on accuracy, something else will suffer. So then this is finish them. Attack one enemy will ignore 25% of the target defense. And ignoring defense is so important in this game because the damage just ramps up if you could ignore defense. We'll ignore 50% of the target's defense instead if the target is under 2 or more debuffs. Places a block damage buff for this champion for 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy. So this is effectively on 3-turn cooldown when booked. So out of the gate it's 4, and then you get a cooldown right here. Now this is the interesting ability. Calculated volley. Attacks all enemies, 75% chance of placing a fear debuff, not true fear. And this goes up to 100% when it's fully booked. And it goes down to 3-turn cooldowns when it's fully booked. A 25% decreased crit damage debuff and a 30% crit rate debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. These debuffs cannot be resisted by enemies who are already under 2 or more debuffs. Okay, so this I think would be interesting against bosses. I guess you could stack it with like an attack down. There's also like all those trials in Chimera. Maybe that'll be useful there. Maybe there'll be certain types of trials in the new faction wars. But this fear is not nearly as impactful as true fear. And my experience with the arena is everybody's running stone skin. So this is really not happening that often because everybody's running the artifact stone skin. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work, right? I just don't feel like that would be that useful in arena. And then the other thing I would want to know, and maybe somebody in the comment section knows, is like, how does the order of operation work? So does the fear apply, and then that one misses, then the next one's unresistible, so that one does apply, and then this one doesn't? How does that alternate, right? You know, or is it like this one right here, attack one enemy 2 times, each hit transfers a random debuff, so the first one counts as a miss and then the second one goes? If this champion is under any debuffs when counterattacks with this skill. So he's going to be self-cleansing over time when he's hit, if he survives. So the question is, where can I use this guy? And I'm trying to think about this. Like right now, I'm actually doing okay in faction wars because I just got Mikage and I have Mitch. He would make a nice addition to the Shadowkin faction for sure. I think I would prefer to have a reviver. I don't think I can use this guy in my main arena team. I don't think I would ever use this guy in live arena. Maybe this would be somebody I could use in tag arena, 3 versus 3. I don't know. I think if I was just starting the game, it would be challenging even to do the fusion. So I'm not sure who this would be for. I'm having a hard time justifying going after this one because I don't think that he's going to be too effective where I need him. I'm largely done with most content outside of some of the hard stuff. Some of the Doom Towers, I'm getting through it. So this is kind of a pass as far as I'm concerned. And I think the player, if I think back when I could have got the most use out of this character would have been like earlier in the game, but I wasn't really able to do fusions that early. So this is kind of a strange one for me, and I'm going to pass unless it's super easy to get. There's always a case to be made that getting all the legendaries and doing all the fusions is useful. That way, if you ever pull a duplicate, that'll help your faction guardians. Okay, I get that. Let me know. Are you going to be going for this fusion? If you haven't done so already, click the link in the description or scan the QR code right here on the screen and you'll get Corrado, the Fox Hunter, right from the start, which is a legendary champion. Then once you hit level 15, you'll get Ugo, an epic support champion. Very, very useful character. In addition, once you hit level 30, you get Tagore, which is also an epic support champion. And then in the first 24 hours of playing Raid Shadow Legends, be sure to use the promo code Monkey King to get Sun Wukong. Bye for now.